Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to episode 84 of Michael and Benjamin's podcast. I am the Michael of Michael and Benjamin's podcast, and I am the one of the two of us who has least recently showered. So, having said that, you can see that I am clearly joined by then the man who in Irish podcasting who has most recently had a shower. It's Ben. He's so clean.
Hi, I'm Ben. I'm the co-host of Michael and Benjamin's podcast. I'm very clean, and I'm joined by a recent stroke victim.
That's not nice, Ben. People have strokes all the time.
Yeah, but they shouldn't do podcasts.
Yeah. So, Ben, you just hit us with the theme music there, and then we'll get on with it.
Theme music for the podcast. We don't actually have any theme music, but I hope someone will mix them up for us. I don't wanna name any names. Rachel, I hope it's Rachel.
Very good. Excellent. Hello, Benjamin. I've recovered from my mild issue there a minute ago, and now I'm ready to talk about comic books and movies and TV shows and whatnot.
I was very worried there for half a second.
Ben, the most exciting thing I felt that happened during the last week, other than stuff in both of our personal lives, was... What you doing?
I had to fix my leg. Sorry, it was twisted.
Wow, professionalism. Spider-Man, Ben. Spider-Man, he's far from home. He's nowhere near home anymore.
Dun, dun, dun.
What did you think
dun,
about
dun. Yeah, bloody con men over at Marvel there with the Far From Home stuff. Had you thinking it was a tie into the Avengers? No, he's far from home in that he's not in New York.
Did you think
I had assumed
that he would be in a space?
In the space.
No, Ben, no, come on now. There's been promotional pictures and stuff released all along.
I know. I should have known. I'm quite interested, Michael, because apparently.
Go on.
According to
now, Ben, the last time you told me something was apparently it was deeply untrue.
Which was?
That Punisher is set after the snap.
Wait, it's supposed to be set after the snap.
Well, it isn't.
Oh, okay. We'll get to that in a second. Then.
Okay.
All right, fair enough. Well, then you're not going to like this either, because apparently Kevin Feige has confirmed with IGN that it's post-snap, and Amy Pascal says it takes place minutes after the events of Avengers Endgame. Ooh. Amy Pascal is the head of the Sony end of the Marvel Sony.
I nearly got upset at you for telling me who Amy Pascal was, and then I remembered we're doing a podcast. It's like, I know who Amy Pascal is, man.
Pascal is. It's for people that don't know who Amy Pascal is.
Rein that back in.
You're gatekeeping on the podcast.
I know,
gatekeep me on my own podcast.
What was I saying there? Yes, Ben, I think it's widely believed to be post-snap. But, it's conceivable that Endgame is going to end up erasing that whole episode, a timeline or something like that. So, maybe Punisher is set post-snap, and
we just don't know.
No one on Earth knows.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. What were you excited about in the trailer, Michael? Sorry.
Ben, I loved that after bloody 70 years or whatever it is, not 70, after however many years it is, someone used the classic Spider-Man music.
Yeah.
Non-ironically, giving it a modern twist, and it's in there and it's great.
I have that written right here. I was really impressed with that. I was like, I really enjoyed that we're actually using an identifiable theme music for one of their superheroes.
Yes, exactly. Because was it in Spider-Man 2 where a street singer was performing or something like that?
Gives it widely known as the best Spider-Man movie sequel to currently exist.
That's the first Spider-Man 2.
Yes, the first Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi.
Not the second Spider-Man 2.
Which is with Andrew Garfield and just a mess.
Or the upcoming third Spider-Man 2.
Which is potentially going to be okay. I'm not... It's too much of a mixed bag with regards to sequels and Spider-Man. Spider-Man sequels are tricky at the best of times.
That's true, and Sony are tricky, but I think it's a Marvel movie just being packaged by Sony, so I think it's going to be fine.
I think it's a really smart move taking him away from New York, because one of the major criticisms of the last Spider-Man was that it's just Iron Man 4 with a lad in a spider suit.
Well, the thing about the last Spider-Man, Ben, is it was set in New York, yes, true, but it wasn't set in Manhattan.
That's also true.
In the not Andrew Garfield. What's the new guy called? The little guy,
Tom Holland.
In the Tom Holland movies, we haven't seen him swing from buildings.
Not majorly. Yeah, you're right.
I don't think ever.
Ever?
He hasn't done a swing through a New York skyline.
Oh, he hasn't done a skyline one yet. Yeah, well, he's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
He's in the low-lying borough of Queens.
Yeah, I think what I mean more than that is the fact that Tony Stark could always zip in and save the day.
Well, Tony Stark may well be dead.
That's what I mean. But he may well be dead. But also taking him out of that and putting him in Europe. If we do fall into the territory. By the way, we are doing Schrodinger's spoilers here, which is basically a prediction that may or may not come to pass. So if it does come to pass, don't hate us.
It won't have come to pass until it is observed.
Until it is observed, which is true of any movie really, and why most trailer breakdowns are a bit hit and miss here and there. But what I mean by that is he often came in. Tony Stark often came in, swooped in, saved the day, and he was always kind of there to handle the big threats. He can't just zip into Europe.
Yeah, well, he can.
But okay.
Aside from that, that was thematically important in the first one because it was a father-son kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas this whole point of this one is he's off on his own. He's in Europe. Although he now has a new mentor by the looks of things.
Yes, bloody... It's a bit of a downgrade, isn't it? How many contracts has Samuel L. Jackson signed with bloody Marvel?
Most successful movie star of all time.
Oh my God. He just pops up again.
Yeah.
And you know what? I wasn't tired of him. No. I was just like, yeah,
he's great.
Yeah. I was really happy to see Samuel L. Jackson in. And it was a great entrance. It was perfect. Interesting mini fact, and something that most trailer breakdown videos on YouTube won't have noticed.
Go on.
The logo on Ned's shirt in the scene where he gets shot in the neck by a dart is the same bear logo used by a bar here in Dublin called Berlin.
Is it?
Yeah, it's on a big wall at the back of the Berlin bar.
What's the situation with why this Spider-Man doesn't seem to have a spider sense, really?
I mean, it kind of depends on the filmmaker, because he's had a spider sense before in Infinity War, his hair raises.
Yeah.
But unless, and I know this is getting very deep into spider theory on powers that aren't real.
Go on.
But unless Nick Fury isn't actually a threat and his spider sense knows that nothing really bad is going to happen.
Or Nick Fury is so good at super spying that he didn't even trigger the spider sense.
I mean, he's very relaxed. I don't know what causes the spider sense to trigger. Is it elevated heart rates? Is it stress chemical that's released from other people that causes it to trigger? I don't know how spider sense works. A musk, if you will. Panic musk, pusk.
Speaking of musk from other people, one of your favourite actors, Jake Gyllenhaal, is in the trailer.
What a man, what a man, what a man, what a mighty fine man. Yeah.
Look, this is going to go deep into Schrodinger's spoilers now. Because it's Mysterio, Ben.
Yeah, it is.
And in the trailer, he's the good egg.
That's very in line with Mysterio in the comic books, because that's how we're introduced to Mysterio initially. His name is, I have it here.
Quentin Beck.
Quentin, thank you very much, Quentin Beck. He's only a bloody special effects guru.
Do you think, Ben,
yes,
that the four monsters, the water one, the molten one, the earth one, and the lightning one, have been created by him?
Oh, they're definitely a thing that he's built.
So he's set up the whole thing to make himself look like a hero.
Yeah.
That's almost certainly what's going on.
That's also why I'm kind of against. A lot of people are saying that it's Hydro Man and Sandman, and I don't think so. Sandman's a pretty big Spider-Man villain. I don't think they just lob him in.
Ben, I have one word for you: Mandarin.
Oh, fair point. Did you know Mandarin has a mini? Sorry, this is completely off topic. Do you know there's a mini video of the Mandarin in prison?
Yes, it's called All Hail the King.
Yeah, I saw it only the other day for the first time ever.
It's quite good.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It has Justin Hammer in it.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I thought you were going to say, did you know that Mandarin is a mini, kind of a form of orange?
Did you know that mandarins are a type of citrus fruit?
I didn't know that, yeah.
Madness. But yeah, that's why I'm kind of against these interpretations that it could be Sandman, it could be Hydro Man. I think they're big amorphous things. They have humanoid forms. I don't think you're going to get a lot of characterization out of them.
No, I don't think so. I think they're going to be creations of Mysterio.
Yeah, they're a big threat.
It's an interesting thing to make Mysterio such an important character. I love the costume.
The costume is great, and I think what's more interesting is They know Gyllenhaal's a moneymaker. They were like, we could put the fishbowl on his head, but no.
Well,
introduce him with that sweet jawline.
Well, that's classic Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're not paying these actors to stay behind helmets. Did you think that when he shows up in his costume and the guy who's watching him on TV says he's part Iron Man, part Thor clicking? I now think that Iron Man being a huge success, very important. But Thor clicking with fans is what made the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because every nonsense thing that happens in the MCU is justified by basically saying to the fans, look, you're all right with Thor.
That's straight out of the Ultimates playbook, though.
Yeah.
They used to do that all the time in the Ultimates comic where it's like, there's a Norse god of thunder on our team. And it was always kind of a joke where Black Widow would be like, oh, he's so delusional. And other people would be like, and then some people would support this and be like, yeah, it's definitely a Norse god. So it's straight out of the playbook. But I think you're definitely right. I think Ragnarok was the last major cementing thing for Thor's character. I don't think he'd be as successful without Ragnarok and the characterization he was given there.
But that's not really what I mean. I mean that they got away with...
Oh. Yeah.
They got away with Thor 1.
Yeah.
And then look at all the other kind of silly designs. Vision looks like what he looks like. But Vision looked at Thor and copied him.
Yeah, with the cape, I guess.
With the cape,
yeah.
And then Mysterio is like, oh, he looks like Thor on Iron, which he does.
I would have said Thor and Doctor Strange, but then I remember going, nobody knows about Doctor Strange. He's not as widely... He's a secret kind of... literally a secret sanctum guy.
Secret Santa.
Secret Santa.
Ben, that's enough about Spider-Man, I think.
Yeah, probably. Also, there's the black suit. The black suit seems to be making an odd cameo, symbiote-free, because Sony ain't giving up those sweet rights, baby.
It doesn't look like it's going to be Spider-Man Noir or any sort of... It's just a stealth thing that Nick Fury gives him.
Nick Fury gives him now a stealth suit.
Yeah, grand. Yeah. Perfect. Grand. Ben, other things that we saw this week... bloody trailer for John Wick 3, Revenge of the Doggos.
Nice try. Parabellum is
what
it's called. Parabellum, by the way, for anyone that doesn't understand the significance of Parabellum. Not you, Mick.
Not me.
Not you. I know you understand things. I know you understand things. Parabellum means ready for war, or get ready for war in Latin. It's a phrase used to prepare for war.
Because, Ben, you'll remember at the end of John Wick 2, he was disavowed, or whatever the hell word they use.
Yeah, they've kind of...
Excommunicated?
He's excommunicated from the assassin community.
Everyone's assassins.
Yeah, everyone's assassins. They've repackaged the ending of number 2, and Ian McShane's character gave him a much longer grace period to kind of set his life up and stuff like that. Or to get ready for the new thing. And one of my favourite lines in it is where Ian McShane goes, every single assassin in New York and John Wick... I'd say the odds are 50-50.
It's very good.
Look, John Wick are by no means groundbreaking philosophical treatises in what it is to be an assassin. They're great bloody movies, though.
Kicking a man in the head.
They're well choreographed. It's Keanu Reeves. I love Keanu Reeves. That Pitbull is very cool that follows him around. Halle Berry's in this one.
Halle Berry's in. I was sitting there, Ben, watching it going, there's going to be a sexy lady any minute now.
Yeah, and then Halle Berry with a German Shepherd, which is a combination.
Two German Shepherds.
Two German Shepherds, excuse me. But yeah, great.
You didn't know you needed that, did you, Ben?
Yeah, I didn't know I needed that at all. But
you can stick that on your FetLife profile.
Exactly. And now if I ever see a movie with Halle Berry and no Doggos from now on, I'll just leave.
Yeah, there'd be no use. Ben, what about Ghostbusters?
Yeah, bloody Ghostbusters, Michael. They're going again. They're not learning. I don't think there's going to be any women's in this one.
Is this Ghostbusters 3?
This is Ghostbusters 3, the official Ghostbusters 3.
But Bill Murray's dead.
Bill Murray's not dead.
Who's dead?
Harold Ramis is dead.
Yeah, that's who I meant.
Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, and Carl... Is it Carl Weathers?
Oh, Jesus, Ben. Ernie Hudson. Oh, fucking hell, Ben. We might have to cut that out.
Oh, shit. I went for one of the famous 80s black movie stars. I picked wrong. Ernie Hudson. I don't know if Ernie Hudson's going to come back. He's such a poorly written character in Ghostbusters 1 and 2.
He did a cameo in the lady one.
Yeah, he's the only one who was willing to do a cameo in the lady one.
Bill Murray was in it too.
Oh, he was in it for half a second. Yeah, you're right.
No, Bill Murray had a little role. He was the guy who came to report a ghost or something.
Oh, yeah.
Died, if you remember.
Well, this looks to be Ghostbusters 3. It's a very brief teaser that doesn't give a lot away. A lot of green lighting leading up to a barn. Then underneath a car sheath, is the back of the old Ghostmobile.
Ecto-1.
Ecto-1, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh, good man. But yeah, are you excited for this? Do you think it's... Well, look...
Are you asking me now, or are you asking the listeners?
A bit of both, but I think I was going to say it's just another cash grab. But that's all our movie going is these days.
That's all it is.
We've just run out of creativity, and we're just going to recycle everything into the dirt.
No, come on.
Into the dirt.
Bumblebee was essentially the Iron Giant. Oh no, that's supporting your point.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was pretty original.
Yeah.
Come on now, it was.
Yeah, okay.
It was.
I mean, but it's based on comics. Everything's based on comics these days in the cinema. But
listen. Who cares where the stories or characters come from as long as the movies are good?
Yeah, as long as we get to see good stuff. All right, Michael. That's John Wick.
John Wick's the first John Wick was pretty original, but I mean
we've since strayed into trope territory but that's okay.
John Wick 1 could have been a Punisher movie.
Yeah. Oh, he would have been a great Punisher. Oh, Mick. In another life, eh?
I'm telling you.
Schrodinger's Punisher. That would make a great episode name if anything in our episode had anything to do with the Punisher. Good. Speaking of the Punisher, Michael.
Yes.
You've been watching television.
I have, Ben. What have I been watching?
Punisher season 2.
Punisher
season 2.
But Ben, she hasn't even been naughty.
You can deal with that
check out Ben's profile on FetLife.
That's going to be a running joke now.
Irish great? Punisher is his FetLife profile.
It used to be Irisher, but then I discovered my kinky side.
Yeah. So, what were we talking about? Yeah, Punisher, Ben, season 2 is out. I'll tell you what though, Ben, it really is quite good.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. I'll go home and watch it now. I didn't realise it was even out.
It just went like I'm Punisher.
I had to get involved.
What was I supposed to do? Sit there?
I like that though. I love, again, it's the same logic as John Wick, where it's just like, this is not gonna, it's not gonna tax your brain.
So I've seen 4 episodes, Ben, because I made a New Year's Lent. What's it called? Lent when you do something. Just giving something up for Lent.
You give it up for Lent.
So
I don't know.
Doesn't matter, Ben. Abstain.
Yeah, you abstain from.
So I have abstained from binge watching entire Marvel Netflix series because there are probably only going to be 2 left.
Yeah,
Punisher season 2 and Jessica Jones season 3.
If
I think Jessica Jones season 3 is made. So Ben, I have only seen the first 4 episodes.
Yes,
and the first 3 episodes in particular were really quite good.
Oh, excellent. They
were like a slightly slow-paced action film.
Oh, cool.
The first 3 together. It seems like it's going to go back to the Daredevil season 2 approach of having mini arcs.
Nice.
And yeah, it was really quite enjoyable. There's a suitably sinister villain. There's very good action.
Yay.
People say, a little spoiler, but people say stupid things to Punisher before he beats them up, and that always makes me feel good.
That always makes me feel good too.
Is there character development? Not really. A little bit, in a kind of regressive sort of way.
You don't need it. He was a massive hit, and the kind of people that are into the Punisher are going to support the Punisher no matter.
Yeah, I mean, there is a certain aspect of it being gun porn.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is gun porn. Jerry Conway had the creator of the Punisher had an interesting thing to say about police officers using the emblem the other day.
Oh, we talked about that.
Yeah, we did.
More than a year ago.
Yeah, more than a year ago, but he condemns it. He thinks it's ridiculous.
Does he?
I can't remember what the exact comparison that he draws, but he says police officers using the emblem is like, I can't even remember. I'll look it up. But
is it like that very famous Mitchell and Webb sketch where the 2 Nazis are in a trench?
And one of them,
are we the bad guys? Look, we've got skulls.
It's amazing.
It's kind of like that, isn't it?
It's one of the best. It's one of the best sketches ever. Mitchell and Webb, for anyone listening outside of the UK and Ireland, is a comedy duo here in the UK and Ireland. Great podcasting there, Ben. But they just do funny skits based on all kinds of things. They're two very nerdy, dweeby guys.
They don't do just funny skits, Ben. They also have a very good television show and a slightly poorer television show. But Ben, look, I am enjoying Punisher. See, episode 4 was back to what I didn't like about The Punisher, which was a bit disappointing.
Oh.
But I have also read other people's reviews, and some people preferred episode 4. Oh. Episode 4, I'll tell you now, it's not a big spoiler, but
it won't break my heart if it is.
No, it won't. It goes back to a kind of in New York waiting around for bureaucracy, and eventually Punisher's just going to go and go off and kill everyone. But one of the things I don't like about it though, Ben, is its refusal to, and you could say this about a lot of the Netflix stuff, to be honest. Its refusal to embrace its comic book history as much as the MCU movies that it allegedly shares a universe with.
There's very little fan service.
Well, it's not even fan service, Ben. It's just, we talked about this last week, but Ben Barnes as Jigsaw.
Yeah, he's very handsome still.
If anything, he's more handsome.
Yeah, he's kind of got a bit of edge to him now.
Yeah, he's got a couple of sexy scars and he's got a cropped haircut and stuff. He just
looks like a male model that you would hire these days.
Yeah. He looks like he could appear on like a Reddit list of the sexiest mugshots. Yeah,
I think there's probably a subreddit for that.
I think there is, but
yeah, almost definitely.
And in the movie Punisher Warzone, Ben, we did have a kind of psychotic, disfigured. We did have a psychotic disfigured.
I like that you actually went through the etymology of what it could possibly be. You were like, what suffixes do we use to describe something that's ugly and deformed, bad?
Prefixes.
Oh, oh my goodness.
That's fine. Don't worry about it. Look, we had a disfigured lunatic Jigsaw with
Dominic West.
Was it Dominic West? It was Dominic West. And just look at Crossbones.
It works.
It works. They can get away with it in the universe they've established. But the Netflix side seems to refuse to engage.
They need that sexy CW edge.
I don't know what it is. I think it's the success of what people liked, what non-comic fans liked about Daredevil season 1 was how grounded it was, and they've taken the wrong message from that.
Yeah, let's not push it to a crazy length.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you look, season 2 is pretty good so far. I'm really enjoying it.
Excellent. Okay,
I'm going to limit myself to 2 episodes a day so as to savor the experience.
Stop that. There's people listening at home enjoying their bloody Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael, I apologize for Michael. This is not turning into a Mouth Sounds ASMR podcast. We're not doing it.
Yeah. FetLife, Irish Mouth Sounds.
In case anyone is wondering, we are not sponsored by FetLife. I know it sounds like
this week's episode is sponsored by FetLife.
Mind you, at this point, if FetLife would like to sponsor the podcast,
do you want to, Ben? Shall we go down the route of explaining why this is funny? I mean,
yeah, why not?
Go on, you might as well.
So a couple of weeks ago, here at the podcast, and a couple of weeks ago, we posted a video to one of the many subreddits that exist. I can't remember the exact one.
I don't remember.
But someone got in touch with us and asked if we could possibly format the podcast so that it would go up on Alexa or other platforms, unusual platforms.
That person may well be listening.
If that person is listening, my response was shocking. I should point out that I respond to these things either in the morning on the way to work or in the evening on the way home. And Mick is going to do a dramatic rendition of how I replied to this request.
So, right, anyway, here I'll read the last line of the initial question. It said, "Thanks, I look forward to listening to more," which is a lovely thing to hear, Ben.
Lovely thing to hear.
Lovely thing. And then Michael and Benjamin's podcast, I should point out, Ben said, and what's the creepiest way I can say this? Hey, thanks so much, baby girl sub. We will definitely look into that. Mm-hmm. And then he presumably realized he'd signed into Reddit rather than his FetLife profile. But it was too late to delete the comment.
Oh, so to that listener, if you ever listen to us again and weren't horrifically scarred, I am so sorry.
Unless you're into it, in which case.
In which case, send me a DM. But overall, I really apologise if you or anyone you know has been unknowingly sexually harassed by the Benjamin of Michael and Benjamin's podcast. I swear to God, it's not me.
Okay, let's really move on.
We were speaking about Netflix there, Michael. So you're going to keep watching the old Netflix?
I will, yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to the 25th of January in Netflix, Michael.
Why, Ben?
Because there's a movie coming out with Mads Mikkelsen.
Doctor Strange.
No. That was a nice reference to a controversy a couple of years ago. Well done.
Why?
Because people wanted to know if Mads Mikkelsen was going to play Doctor Strange, if he was going to play the villain. They kind of wanted him to play Doctor Strange. Yeah.
Oh.
Thought you were being very clever.
No. He's just in it. What film?
It's Polar.
Polar.
Well, now, we should explain, we're not just throwing a Spanish accent on that from fun. Polar is... Polar. Polar, I'm going to say it properly so people don't get too confused. Polar is a movie coming out on Netflix starring Vanessa Hudgens and Mads Mikkelsen, primarily Mads Mikkelsen. It's based on a bloody comic book.
Go on.
By a man called Victor Santos, who is from Spain.
He's from Spain, so the film is definitely got Polar.
So it's definitely Polar. And it centers around a bloody retired assassin called the Black Kaiser.
You're thinking of the film Red.
No, I'm not. No.
You're thinking of the film John Wick.
No.
You were thinking of the film Assassins with Sylvester Stallone and Sharon Stone, where they have
definitely not.
Shower.
Definitely not.
All right, go on then.
I am thinking of the small, independently produced comic book that's known as Polar. It's written by Victor Santos, and he's an incredibly talented visual storyteller.
Go on.
He does an L. He loves an L sparse layout. Loves an L minimal dialogue kind of thing, and really relies on image and movement, line quality, etc., to tell his story in the most effective way possible. I'm very excited to see it, Michael, because it's a very, very good comic book. Think Sin City on an excellent day.
Right.
So it uses a very limited colour palette. It has kind of a blood orange, black and white. And
are you saying blood orange the fruit?
No, blood orange the colour, as in a reddish orange.
Okay,
hue.
I think that's a fruit.
It probably is. Blood orange. Oh, there's a cat outside the door.
Open the door there. See
okay, we see if the cat wants to come in.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. We'll be back in a second.
Let's see who it is.
We just want to play with cats.
Who is it?
It's Taylor.
Hey, Taylor, do you want to come in?
Taylor going to come in? Cat in the pod? Don't
Nope.
think so. Taylor never wants to come in. She wants the attention.
Yeah.
Never wants to come in.
Blood orange palette.
Yeah. FetLife is plagued with users like Taylor. People who want the attention but don't want to come in. But anyway, it looks very interesting. It's a really cool comic. First of all, it's landscape. The majority of comics that we read are portrait.
Like a bloody annual calendar.
Yeah, like an annual calendar.
Oh, I don't like
that.
So
he uses these long, wide panels. Well, Michael, you're a Declan Shalvey fan.
I am, yeah.
You're a Brian Hitch fan.
Declan Shalvey did a Moon Knight.
Yes, and you're a Brian Hitch fan.
There's the Absolute Authority collected hardcover there, Ben.
Absolutely.
You can see it.
You enjoy a widescreen cinematic comic, do you?
Yeah,
not?
but not literally widescreen.
This is a logical conclusion to that theory. So,
okay, go on.
How about you just step off Victor Santos on Polar?
No,
I'm kidding. It is a fantastic look at it's a gritty Liam Neeson, John Wick style revenge thriller. He's a retired assassin. The company starts to clean house that he used to work for. He's top of the list, but he's the world's greatest assassin. He only goes and bloody sorts them out.
Now, Ben, I'm going to turn this around on you a little bit.
Ooh.
If you remember last week, we looked at Irish independent comic Neon Skies.
We did.
And what you didn't like it about, one of the things you didn't like about it was it's very, not derivative, but it's very commonplace plot.
Yes.
But now you're lauding this, despite the fact that it's John Wick and Taken and Red and...
Well, I suppose
justify yourself.
I suppose my argument for that is the tropes in Neon Skies are...
No, don't attack Neon Skies anymore. Talk about...
Okay, sorry.
About
what I would say about this is it's a far more grounded story, and he does something very important that other comics may not do. His characters have very grounded personalities before he starts. He establishes their personalities quite well and uses those to push the visual storytelling throughout. The characterization is what saves generic storylines if it's done well, in my opinion.
Like in a Ryan Gosling film.
Sure. Ryan Gosling is amazing, and you know he is, and you just wish you were him, and you can't be him.
I don't wish I was Ryan
we
Gosling.
We all want to be Ryan Gosling. Don't lie.
No, look, I wouldn't mind being Hugh Jackman.
No interest in being Ryan Gosling. A huge Jackman is Ryan Gosling. He's a huge jacked man.
I'm pretty sure Ryan Gosling is pretty short, and as you know, Ben, I am not into that.
Look, there's two kinds of people in the world, Michael. There's people who want to be Ryan Gosling, and there's people who want to be lifted by Ryan Gosling in Crazy Stupid Love, where he mimics the scene from Dirty Dancing.
So there are three types of people in the world.
In the love?
People who want to be Ryan Gosling, people who want to be with Ryan Gosling, and then Ryan Gosling.
Well, I mean, that's the ideal threesome right there.
Oh, Jesus.
If you or anyone you know is interested in a threesome, check out the
Talk about Polar. I've accidentally kicked you there under the table.
There was no accident. You were just like, quiet. Stop that. Look, it's a great comic from someone who...
Why is it called Polar?
Because he begins the story in the pole, one of the poles.
Okay.
He's retired in a cabin in the woods.
Now, Ben, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I'm going to let you finish.
Yes.
But I have to say that Beyonce has one of the best comic books of all time.
Beyonce is one of the best comics of all time.
What I want to say here is, you keep saying this visual storytelling as if it helps me understand why it might be a good comic.
Well, fair enough.
Right, go on.
Michael, this week we've chosen to talk about visual storytelling in comics. So, comics is an old enough medium at this point. We've had a lot of trials and errors. We've had a lot of wins. We've had a lot of losses when it comes to comic books. Artists generally come in a couple of different schools. One of the really lauded qualities of an artist is speed. So very, very often, if an artist can churn out vast amounts of work on time, a comic book company will push them massively. I talk, of course, of a Steve Dillon, a Chris Liefeld, who just spits them out, and they're not good. In Liefeld's case,
who else is like that? Some of the X-Men artists from the 90s were probably like that.
Liefeld is coming back to X-Men.
Oh,
yeah, he has a new character called Major X Major, something like that. He looks ridiculous. I'll show it to you after. Very entertaining.
Are you talking about Rob Liefeld?
Yeah, Liefeld.
You said Chris.
Oh, who's Chris Liefeld?
I don't know. It's a guy you know from FedLife.
I hope not. Yeah, okay. I have no idea who that is. But generally they're lauded for this quality. They're lauded if they can do big slash pages. They're lauded if their colouring is excellent. One of the things that gets overlooked massively, I think, is the ability to tell a good, fluid story, a story that moves at its own pace through visuals alone.
Right.
We have a good example of how not to do it sitting in front of us there on the desk, Michael. Michael, 2 weeks ago, you put up a comic weekly roundup, as you are wont to do.
Yeah.
As you are wont to do. An excellent comic weekly roundup. I quite enjoy it.
Sometimes I do it in a rush, to be honest.
I quite often have a read of them after you've recommended them. But one you picked up, Michael, is GoBots number 2.
Well, Ben, first of all...
Published by IDW.
Why, right?
Go ahead.
First of all, I like IDW. I like the kind of plucky 4th or 5th biggest comic publishers doing well for themselves. You see, I have all of their half of their Transformers comics.
Sure.
Also, Ben, if you'll take a look to your left here, you'll notice a shelf which is, I can't think of a good word for stuffed, brimming to the brim with GoBots.
GoBots galore.
GoBots, all the GoBots. In fact, Ben, you'll even notice, for example, if we open the random page here, there's Turbo, and Turbo is... Where's bloody Turbo? He's in there somewhere.
It's one of the red ones.
Yeah, it's one of the red ones. There's Scooter. That's that guy there.
Mm-hmm.
There's Leader 1. Who's on there?
Of course, Leader 1.
Leader 1. There's Leader 1 there. You'll notice him. There he is. There's Psykill. So...
Psykill.
Yeah, I am unironically a GoBots fan. I like the GoBots.
Which came first, Transformers or GoBots?
GoBots.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a thing.
I think we covered that before, didn't we?
We might have.
Covered that before.
GoBots are great toys. I'm particularly a fan of the GoBots toys, to be honest, not really the fiction. But, Ben, I didn't like that comic because, and I'm going to channel my inner Ben here.
Excellent.
And give a kind of real in-depth technical reason for why I didn't like it.
Good.
It was a bag of Mickeys.
It was a bag of Mickeys. That does sound exactly like me. So in this, not the coveted Mickey Awards, by the way.
Oh yeah,
a bag of bad Mickeys, Bicks, if you will, Bickies.
A bag of Bickies is good.
A bag of Bickies. It's a bag of Bickies. So yeah, it's not very good, Michael.
No, it's terrible.
It's written and drawn by Tom Scioli. Now we do have to preface something. I was prior to this podcast, bashing this comic because I just thought it was very poor. Michael and I have praised Tom Scioli before.
Yeah.
You may recall, if you're a long-time fan of the podcast, we once talked about Freedom Force.
Let's say long-time listener rather than long-time fan. I think most of the people who listen for a long time have it in for us.
Yeah, they probably don't like us anymore. That's fair, especially if you got a comment from me on Reddit at some point.
Yeah.
But listen, baby sub girl. Tom Scioli did Freedom Force. He's kind of famous for a run he did with Image Comics called Godland.
Yeah, basically, Ben, what he is he's the world's foremost Jack Kirby impersonator.
And that's what he is. And we liked that at one point. But now we seem to have found a comic where he was allowed to write and draw.
Yeah.
He shouldn't have been allowed to do that.
Ben, this is one of the few comics I have ever read that I found it hard to finish. It took me 3 sittings to read a 22-page comic.
The man doesn't understand how dialogue works. He seems to be experimenting quite heavily with panel layout. And I love an experimental panel layout. But what he's doing is, he's not what you're supposed to do with a panel layout. If you take a traditional 6-panel layout or 9-panel layout, and then you want to experiment with that form, you choose the moment of most significant action to portray.
All right, I didn't know the art police were here.
But that's not my logic. That's the logic of Scott McCloud, who wrote Understanding Comics. It's the logic of Declan Shalvey, who you're quite a fan of. It's the logic of David Aja. Aha. Sorry.
Aya?
Aya. I think it's Aha or Aya. I'm not sure.
Aha,
who you're also a fan of.
From the 90s.
These men enjoy patterns in block.
Or women.
And then, or women. Or Sarah Pacelli, if you will.
Yeah. I like Ben. We'll talk about who we like later.
We're gonna get there. But what this man seems to do is he kind of takes whatever he likes and mashes them all together in a panel.
I think, Ben, that you are misinterpreting this. I think that this comic is an experiment. I think this comic is an art piece, and it's an art piece of a comic. That the actual content and story aren't that big a deal.
So why would you publish it?
Because it's an experiment. It's something different. Even the way it's printed, the paper it's printed on, the kind of washed out colors and stuff. I think the whole thing is a kind of. Maybe I'm completely wrong, though. Maybe it's just a load of shite.
I think it's a tremendous bag of Mickeys. Even the cover. Like, just look at the cover. Go! I'm assuming that's a GoBots catchphrase or something, which is a terrible catchphrase. But, look, let's get into some of the ones we love. Because that's what sparked this for me. I was thinking about it, and I was reading Polar. And Polar is very good at moving things through. So before we begin, someone has done this much better than us. A guy called Scott McCloud, who I just mentioned. He wrote in 1993 Understanding Comics, which is a manual on how comic books as an art form separate themselves from normal literature or filmmaking or something like that. And he kind of had some key factors for what makes a good visual storyteller.
Right.
The factors are kind of as follows. I'm just going to turn the page in my notebook there because I wrote them all down. Some of the key characteristics of a good visual storyteller are someone who's very... it's misleadingly simple art.
Oh, okay.
So you look at it and you go, I could draw that. And then you get a few pages or panels in, you go, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't be that consistent and that thing.
I could draw that.
You possibly could draw that. It's a square and a couple of ovals slapped together. You possibly could draw that, no problem. You're not a bad artist, Mick. Don't be too hard. I seem to recall an avocado making an appearance once upon a time.
The devil avocado. He was great.
Yeah. One of the key things I would look at there is David Aja again and his Hawkeye run. He loves a 9-panel layout, and all the characters must be simply drawn to fit into that many panels. There's nothing groundbreaking in how he draws them.
Very simple.
They're very simple, but that simplicity allows him to focus on some other important things, mainly movement, geometric construction throughout the thing, and centering in frame or breaking that pattern to make more interesting contrasts. So they're misleadingly simple.
Fet Life.
Purple boxers. That is one of my kinks. So another thing is unusual panel layout. You can see it here. He will very often move through a scene using wide panels, then use significant focus on one action when it's the most important thing. It's an interesting thing to see done. David Aja does it in a particularly excellent way. I'm going to stick with Aja. because I like that song.
Knowing you.
I was going to go with Take On Me. So, unusual panel layout is good. As I mentioned before, character-driven is very important. Usually if someone's going to focus on something with sparse dialogue and minimal layouts, you have to have a well-established character before you can even think of using a simplistic storytelling site. We're trying to get a mountain of comic books down here. It's absolute gold. Mick is going to look through some of his stuff for examples of what I'm saying, I think, is what's happening here. Most importantly throughout this, a lot of these people stick very closely to the principles of animation and storyboarding.
Right.
They understand that not every single action has to be illustrated.
Right.
What you do is you choose the key moment of momentum or movement and you illustrate it bit by bit. So instead of going... For example, if I was to watch you do a somersault, Michael, which I've never seen you do...
But I can.
But I'm sure you can. Perhaps there would be 6 significant movements that the human eye could make out when you did that.
That is an interesting theory.
But what you need to do in a comic is do it in 3. So we would look at the part where you prepped to jump, we would look at the part where you spun in the air, and we would look at your landing. That would be a more effective way to show that in a comic book than going through all 6 movements. Do you understand?
Of course I understand.
Animators it's for I need a bit of interaction. He's just here
I'm just reading.
He's gotten confused by Catwoman in a suit.
No, actually, I'm looking at this specifically because I think this is a good modern example, which I'm going to show you in a few minutes.
Absolutely. But to keep going on that, another thing that they do is they follow the principles of cinematography. So there's a lot of blocking, there's a lot of composition put into each shot. A good example again, someone we love is, you just flick through him there, Hellboy. Hellboy's a great example. Every single panel in a Hellboy comic is very finely composed. It follows certain rules. Blocking is important. You can follow eye lines through the page. It's basically an artist's way. If an artist is good enough, they can lead you through a page without you ever realizing what they're doing.
Very good.
That's why when we notice a bad comic book artist, it's because we're so irritated that it's such an effort to get through.
Which is exactly how I felt about that Ghost comic.
Which is why we never was thing. So it would come down to rhythms. I've come up with 6 examples on my end, Michael, of people that I think would be quite... Not sex examples, Michael. No, I didn't say that.
Go on.
But anyway, Declan Shalvey is obviously number 1.
Obviously, no. Hold on a minute.
Because he's Irish. Got to support the Irish creators.
Support our lads.
Michael. Our boys. David Aja is there on the list. Chris Samney, who did the Daredevil run with Mark Waid. He's also a big Batman illustrator. David Mazzucchelli, who did the Daredevil run that we talked about last week with Frank Miller and Denny O'Neil. Mm-hmm. And then a guy called Trad Moore from Image Comics. He did the Legacy of Luther Strode. Do you remember that one?
Nope.
And then, of course, someone who we talked about on the podcast a million times, bloody Jack Kirby.
Old Jack.
Good old Jack.
Ben, was it Declan Shalvey who did the famous corridor fight or the warehouse fight in Moon Knight?
Yes, absolutely. He is a huge fan of horizontal panels. So I have a bit of breakdown on each one. Since you led me straight into Declan Shalvey, let me give you an example of why Declan Shalvey does some bloody great stuff.
Right, go on.
Declan Shalvey, first of all, is probably most famous or most noted for his work on Moon Knight. He's currently working on a Wolverine comic.
Yeah.
He's currently doing a Wolverine. He's being put up to he's been put on the big characters. He's been up in the big leagues. But he loves horizontal panels, long horizontal panels that break up throughout the page. So he'll put them down. And then he loves central framing in those big horizontal panels. He said himself, listen to him in interviews, it's almost like there's an invisible line that goes down the center of his panel structure.
Right, he could just draw one.
And the key moments, I'm sure he probably does.
Erase it later.
But he said he didn't realize this until he went through all his work. He was teaching here in Dublin. He was teaching a composition and storytelling workshop here in Dublin. And he said he had to go over his whole work to try and figure out what people liked so much about it.
Yeah.
And he came across this unusual format where he does these things. He quite often puts a strong line composition. So, for example, sometimes he'll put it in the top right-hand corner, left-hand corner, if you're in the room with me here, and bring it down to the bottom right-hand corner. It's in a diagonal, and he will allow key points to follow on that. What I mean when I say key points is the character's head will stay along that line throughout the thing, and it creates a nice rhythm that you easily follow.
That's interesting then.
In conversation, in cinema, stuff like that is to do with eyeline. So if a character's eyeline stays at one point in the frame, you don't move it. You can change the angle. You can look at their head from the right side or the left side, but their eyeline doesn't change, and
if
it
you
creates
remember,
rhythm.
Ben, we did a little skit more than a year ago when Thor Ragnarok came out.
Yes.
And something that bothers me about that skit is my eyeline is off when you enter the room.
See?
Because I was looking up slightly.
See?
Because I was thinking of the Hulk.
See?
But then you came in and you're not Hulk-sized by any stretch.
By any stretch.
So my eyeline is off. And
Thank you for reminding people that I'm a small person.
I know. I'm not Hulk-sized, Ben, by any stretch.
Oh, come on.
Very few people are. My friend George.
One of us here is closer to Hulk-sized than the other. I think
Yes,
we all know who
but
it is.
not-
It's Taylor the cat.
She's a lovely little cat. Meow, meow, meow. Nom, 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 nom.
If anyone is struggling to figure out what I mean in terms of comic books, you can also look at a really great cartoon called Samurai Jack.
Samurai Jack's great. I love Samurai
Yeah, by a guy called Gendy Tartakovsky. That is a masterclass, generally speaking, in visual storytelling. Very often pushes the dialogue. He only uses dialogue at the start of the series, or at the start of an episode and the end of an episode, and very often lets them run for a very long time without any sound at all.
Some episodes are almost completely silent.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably more importantly than that, it backs up my point about very strong characterization. At no point in any of the Samurai Jack episodes do you ever question the type of person Samurai Jack is.
An honorable samurai.
You understand what his action will be, and that allows you to operate without dialogue. Dialogue is very often used as exposition to show a moral issue or something like that. But if you have a good artist who understands how to draw expression and movement and body language, you don't actually need dialogue to show someone's inner state.
What do you think that this type of visual storytelling, as you're calling it,
Yes.
is aided when the writer is the artist?
I think, far be it from me to disparage any kind of writer-artist relationship, I think it's more important that the writer understands that artist's style, or, more importantly, that artist has a good cinematic knowledge or has good visual reasoning. They understand how sight works, I suppose.
Because you often see these days comic book scripts, and it will say something like, Batman fights the thugs, do whatever.
Yeah.
And then the artist is the one who has to
come up with all that.
Visualize the fight with the thugs.
We are interestingly, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in the podcast, living in the age of the writer in terms of comic books. Mm-hmm. I often find that very strange because I think without artists, it's just kind of stories with parts missing. If you follow this rule of, and I'm going to let you figure out the fight scene, then what are you doing? You're blocking it out.
But the art, but surely that's a collaborative thing. Surely that's trusting.
But it depends. For example, Saga is a comic we both love. I don't think Saga would be anywhere near as popular without the artist.
Well, it would be just a script.
No. But if it was a different artist, I mean, her style is very unique to that storytelling. But I think the creators there have a very strong relationship. Fiona Staples is a phenomenal artist,
right?
And I think her relationship with I'm going to forget his name. Why the Last Man? Brian K. Vaughan. Thank you. I think they understand each other very well. But for example, all the captions, lettering and stuff is done by Fiona Staples. She does the lion's share of the work. Now, she may not be able to come up with ideas like that, but she certainly comes up with character designs. I'd say Brian K. Vaughan goes, television head.
Television head, but he's a robot.
Yeah.
And he's on FetLife.
It's...
Presumably.
But for example, we've had this argument many times when it comes to Jack Kirby and Stan Lee.
Yes.
Stan Lee would very often be like, he's a superhero with, he's blind. And then...
He's got legs.
Yeah, and then it was Jack's turn to do everything else.
Yeah. What? Oh, piece of bird.
But I think there's a perfect example of people who are very fluid. For example, Hellboy is written and drawn almost exclusively by Mike Mignola. Duncan Fregado, who is a very good friend of Mike Mignola's, took over the drawing duties when Mike Mignola had other commitments. But he still wrote them. But they had a very close working relationship before he took over. So I think it's people who understand how that artist thinks or how that writer thinks, or, you know, I think it helps if you have a basis. I think it helps if you have something pre-existing that you can reference. And I think very often for strong visual storytellers, it's definitely cinema. I think anyone who has a very strong sense of visual storytelling in comics has more than likely a very strong love of old cinema, maybe even more than new cinema. For example, Genndy Tartakovsky is heavily influenced by Japanese samurai films and westerns. Victor Santos is hugely inspired by the old pulp films of the 1940s and 50s. And I know this because I've read the foreword to a bunch of stuff. But I don't know who David Aja is inspired by, but I'd be willing.
Take on me.
Gold. But there are many examples of this. You were pointing one out to me earlier on.
I've been reading Catwoman recently.
Yeah.
And, you know, plot-wise, it's not the most exciting of... I have to stop leaning away from the mic when I talk. It's not the most exciting of plots. And... To be honest, this is terrible podcasting.
Yeah,
to be honest, we all know that I'm buying it for the art, but the art is really good. It's Joelle Jones.
Yeah, that comic would not sell as well if it was another artist and that poor plot.
Yeah, it's a really generic bloody mob family doing a bad thing versus Catwoman figuring them out, but she's not really a good guy, but she doesn't want them to do that thing.
But it's this fascinating thing where we laud the writer instead of the...
But it's interesting that you say that because is Joelle Jones a woman?
Yes.
Her fight scenes... there are very little dialogue in these comics.
Yeah.
I often go through them in a couple of minutes, but I'll go back and look again and go, because it's cool how she did a punch in that guy's face.
Because there's a rhythm built up through those issues, and I know this because you've given me a few of them. Mm-hmm. There's a rhythm built up in how those storytellings are done. Your eye flows. That's also the reason you finish it so quickly. Mm-hmm. Is your eye is naturally just following whatever the artist wants you to do, and you're running through it much quicker. It's a much more satisfying experience, and you will go back.
Now, here's an interesting thing, though. Because the latest issue, it's suffering a little bit from replacement artist syndrome.
Oh, no.
And the latest issue was drawn by Joelle Jones and Elena Bighouse. And it's still fine. It's still good. I mean, it's one of those fill-in artists who very much aped the style of the original artist. They're not trying to put their own stamp on it. It doesn't suddenly look very different. Yeah. But... It harkens back to what you said earlier. There's a move, Ben, in combat sports, mostly in Muay Thai, where someone throws a kick at your ribs.
Okay.
Right? And you catch it with your, let's say they throw a left kick, and you catch it with your right arm. Mm-hmm. And then you slip up their leg a little bit and spin and elbow them.
No, you've been reading my FetLife profile again.
I wrote your FetLife profile.
I don't actually have a FetLife profile now, do I?
It's interesting. Yeah, you do. Irish Punisher. What was I saying? Yeah, interestingly, I think it's the first time in this run of 7 issues of Catwoman where the individual stages of that move, so the catch, the spin... and the beginning of the elbow, take place in a single panel with kind of outlines.
Oh, they do the old school comic thing where it's a watercolored version of the character moving.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like how they used to do in Transformers comics, how they would show a transformation in a single panel. He'd be a robot, then half a car, then 3/4 a car, then a car, but in a single panel.
Yeah, but that's the really awkward thing about the early days of comic books. They didn't know how to capture great movement in what they did. And what they assumed it was, we need to see that cycle. It's like a movement cycle, and every comic book fan knows what I'm talking about. Every comic booker knows what I'm talking about. It's where you see that watercolored, lightly traced version of the character in the same frame moving around. Great visual storytellers don't need that. They pick their point and they break it into panels. I'm not against. It can be done very well. Again, coming back to Daredevil, one of the early proponents of that style, and it worked great for Daredevil. Mm-hmm. It was very acrobatic, and each move went through it. Interestingly, that's one of the big differences between Marvel and DC. DC often focused on the style that I am talking about, whereas Marvel was a big fan of the watercolor hero
Does that have a
version.
name?
I'm sure it does. I don't know what it is. We'll find it out for next week. That would have been a good one. But it falls back to animation, where you've heard me talk before about animating on 1s, 2s, and 3s, haven't you?
No.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well, I've mentioned before. Into the Spider-Verse, which you mentioned earlier, is a great example of this. Some of the movements are very jerky. They're very vibrant. They have a lot of movement. It's because they're animating 3D animation on 2s. So for every single movement, 2 frames of animation are given. You should really, if you want the human eye to keep up, it should be 6, 7, 8, 9. The higher you can get, the closer to fluid human movement.
But then you end up with The Hobbit.
Then you end up with The Hobbit, where it's too real. It's too real, Roy. It's too real.
Get it off my screen.
Yeah. But in animation, that just doesn't work. So how you compensate for that, especially in 2D animation, is you animate on 2s and then you add motion blur to what you do to mask the movement. They didn't shy away from this Into the Spider-Verse, and they used 3D animation, which would traditionally have a higher frame per second count, and they used 2s. So they would build a model and then they would animate it in 2s to give it this really vibrant, punchy thing. And it creates an amazing style, but as you said, final fight scenes can be like, oh God.
I felt a bit headachy.
Yeah, it can have that, oops, sorry, hit the mic, classic. But it can have that effect. Great visual storytellers understand that you don't need to include every single movement. And what can happen with that watercolor style of movement,
where do you draw the line?
It can get... That's good.
That's what this episode
They're
is
called. Excellent. We need to write that down. But what it actually means... I really enjoyed that. What I actually mean by that is it can really slow down the reader's eye because they're trying to follow each point. And your brain will try and compute that, whether you realize it or not. And it won't do it. Whereas someone who understands that it's 1, 2, 3, as opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, your eye will go, oh yeah. Your eye will fill in the gaps. It's similar to that theory on reading, where all you need is the first letter of the word and the last letter of the word, and your brain kind of fills in. I know it's not a golden rule, but some people think of it that way. Your brain can fill in the blanks a lot better than you think. Okay, sorry, I've ruined the episode with pseudoscience. Mixed pet peeve is pseudoscience.
Let's wrap it up there, Ben.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you have any favourite visual storytellers? Any favourite episodes of Samurai Jack? Any favourite?
I like the one with the Scotsman.
The Scotsman is fantastic. I
also like the one with the archers in the tower. That's
amazing. But that's a really good example of perfectly silent storytelling.
I know.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said it.
Fair enough. But moving on from there, do you have any visual storytellers that I missed out on? Some of the big recommendations that we got were David Mazzucchelli. He released an Italian comic book called... Oh, what's it called? It's here. Ass
Baby.
No, Michael.
Astronomicon.
No, I'm not gonna. I can't believe this. I lost it, but we'll put it up in the link down below. You can take a look at each one. If you have any that we missed, let us know. We are, as always, on Instagram. We are on Reddit. We are on FetLife. Give us a review on
YouTube.
iTunes. Let us know. If any of the issues raised by Ben on Reddit have affected you in this episode, there will be a hotline number at the end of the episode. That's it from us.
Bye.
Bye.